You and I with Rashmi Shetty is a simple attempt of bringing in stories of people you and I can draw inspiration from. Ordinary folks, extraordinary lives. Their uniqueness and individuality that make them interesting to talk to and to listen to. A reaffirmation of the fact, open your eyes wider, the world is far more beautiful when we acknowledge the presence of both you and I. Our guest today is a strategic advisor in CSR and a diversity and inclusion expert. Mentoring and coaching senior leaders in the corporate world, Jacintha Jayachandran is a trustee with HopeWorks Foundation. An HR professional, she moved on to become an entrepreneur and then found her calling in guiding teenage girls from economically weaker sections with hope. Her sole purpose to make a difference every day of her life. Working mainly with these girls who she helps dare to dream, she candidly shares her beautiful journey. An articulate speaker and storyteller, Jacintha's mission is timely, especially for the current crisis in India. Listen in to understand how to nurture the powerful four-letter word, hope. Hi Jacintha, welcome to You and I with Rashmi Shetty.
Thank you so much, Rashmi.
I've been so excited to be talking to you and seeing the body of work that you have, and especially the meaningful work that you did during the COVID last year, 2020, for the migrants and other people. I was so touched, Jacintha. I heard you on another platform and I love the work that you do. And I think stories like yours should go out loud and clear to the world. What kind of people the universe has amongst us. Beautiful people like you. Such an honor to have you here, Jacintha Jayachandran. And when it comes to you are a body of work with HR. And now I love the foundation that you have started, HopeWorks. How do the two come together? Where did they meet? And how is hope such a beautiful part of your journey? Would you want to go into your HR world first before you take us to your foundation?
Sure. I think first and foremost, Rashmi, I think it's an absolute honor to be here and to be speaking to you. But just to go back and look at HR, my education background is really Masters in Social Work. So the idea that the world revolves around kindness and giving, I think is ingrained, not just because of what you study, but also because of, I think, the way I was raised, my family. I think everything contributes to how your worldview develops and how your outlook develops to life, right? But once I completed my master's in social work, I had specialized in HR, and therefore the natural, flow was into going into HR functions in corporates. And I was, I think, very blessed, as I always consider myself and my life to be someone up there being very kind. I got some amazing opportunities, and of course, it was the beginning of the IT wave in India. So it was amazing to be part of organizations like HP and Infosys, where I spent the longest duration of my career as an employee, and to work in an organization like On Mobile. I found it very exciting, And HR, very many people look at it from various different angles, right? Much less the role complexity. I look at how you play the role of being in the center of many things. You represent the management, you represent the rest of the organization, you form the bridge between the two. You're constantly juxtaposing one with the other so that the organization runs smoothly. It's not just about recruitment and compensation and training. For me, it's really about building bridges between people and diverse stakeholders within the organization to the point where everyone feels good about coming to the organization, feels good about the work that they are doing. And if they don't feel so good, they know there is somebody that they can go and talk to. And I think that was very important. But as I came towards the 15th year and I was already head of HR at On Mobile Global, I felt when I was leaving that stage, I was done with this idea of employeeship. I wanted to move to, I think, becoming more a self-directed human being than probably being part of any organization. And that's how many things came together, and then I went into entrepreneurship. And I'm happy that I've been around for about 12 years now, actually, as an entrepreneur. The company that we started was actually called Transcendix, but now is called Skills Cafe because we merged it with another organization. And that was a completely different experience, because while in my employeeship mode, I worked with, I think, 4 companies. Yeah. As an entrepreneur, I had consulted with about 180 companies. You walk in and out of organizations. You're solving real life problems with reference to people, but impacts your business directly. And when organizations trust you to be able to solve that problem, you feel very, very empowered. You are constantly seeking to get better every day at doing what you do, because you can't solve your client problems with your just your own experience. You have to be out there looking at the world through their eyes and seeing what is it that they are seeing, and how is it that we can solve it for them. You have to design solutions for their people problems, and that required tremendous energy, time, and I loved the fact that I was doing that. I think in 2019 I was heading towards 2 big milestones in life. One was I was turning 50 in another year, and 2, I had completed 25 years as a professional. And it was also around that time, I think as human beings, at least for me, the calling was very clear that you do something that you feel you're contributing to someone's life literally every day. I have not shared my introduction to you in terms of the format that I have, but I do have a purpose statement for myself which says my purpose in living is to make a difference every day. Now, whether I do it for one person or 2 people, it doesn't matter to me, but my self-reflection just before I go to bed in the night is, did I do that? Did I even make one small difference to somebody? It could be anybody at all, right? And I realized I was in that phase where I probably wanted to do this more or less full time, first and foremost, more or less with children, especially young girls. And therefore, I said this probably is the time to think about it. I didn't have, the vision for Hope and HopeWorks when I was in this cusp. So I went and met the principal of my school, Sister Pauline. She said, look, I have children who come from financially very, very under-resourced backgrounds, and I'm struggling to make them believe that they can get ahead in life. So she said, what is your family background? So I remember speaking about how we definitely were lower middle class. So I remember telling the principal, I think my parents had a big role in this. My father always made me believe that if you want to go somewhere, you can get there. You want to achieve something, I think you can do it. So I don't think the current circumstances were in any way a barrier to where you want to go. So I think, I think my father's influence was, and my parents' influence was in a big way, very empowering. And then I asked her, what is it that we can do for the children's system? Because I realized she was really struggling to come to grips with this. And then she asked me, what do you do now? So I actually told her that a large part of my work revolves around leadership, mentoring, and coaching. And this is for people who already have, say, 20, 25 years of experience, and you're still required to mentor and coach because you constantly wade into situations which you are not most well equipped for. And even if you are, sometimes you want to validate your thinking process. Rashmi, if I may digress just a little bit, I was part of the Women's Grievance Cell as part of my Masters in Social Work. And as the name suggests, this was located within the Police Commissioner's office at that time. And I would go there twice a week, right? And most of it would be about, abuse, doubt, harassment. And yet, when you sat with women, you couldn't take control of their lives and say, do this, right? You could at best try to understand why was she putting up with abuse for that many years. And then you realize that she has her own way to make decisions about this. And they are perfectly valid reasons for her. You and I may see it as, why don't you just walk out and, all of those things. But for her, in the worldview that she had, whatever she was doing was the option. It's only when she met somebody else who said, oh, there are other options, there are other possibilities, there are different ways to think about this. But eventually the thinking, the moving, the deciding has to be hers. You can't tell her tomorrow, I think you should just walk out of your family or something like that, right? Because you get hit by what she's going through and your mind is already saying, why is she putting up with this? But in her mind, she still has to do a lot of processing, a lot of learning, unlearning before she decides whatever she decides in her life. And we have to learn to respect that. You can't tell her, no, go ahead and do this. And I realized,
I am actually intrigued there that since you've met women who are going through that process, what is it that they are processing that makes them want to stay and not let go of an abusive relationship or a harassing one?
Very many things, Rashmi, very many things. Let me tell you, the number of cases I handled in that 1 year was very interesting for a 22-year-old. Let me tell you, I started thinking, wow, what a world I got exposed to. A 16-year-old girl was married off, because she was not very good at studying. Her parents said, let's get her married. So I met her only when she was sent back from her in-laws' house for dowry harassment. When I used to talk to this girl, she would say, if my parents keep me here, it's okay. But they're also stressed. No, they have 3 more children to take care of. I'll become a burden. It's okay if they send me to my husband's house also. I'm sure he'll change after some time. So it wasn't the dowry. It was many things. What will society say? Can my parents handle this pressure of taking care of me along with all the other children? So she was sent back, through a lot of what you call family panchayats that get held to resolve these kind of issues. And of course, she was burnt. Okay. And I remember getting a call and rushing to St. John's. We are talking, Rashmi, of a 16-year-old child. We're not talking of anybody else, in the cusp of her life. And I went into the Burns ward and mercifully, her face was not burnt. She was burnt as she was lying down like this, face down. So I remember asking her, how are you? And she said, Uritaite madam in Kannada, which meant, it's burning, right? It's burning. But she said, I think I'll be okay. I said, focus on getting well, because I think that's the most important part. And then she looked at me and she said, what will happen after I recover? Of course, she didn't even know the extent of damage. And, I said, we'll try and see what we can do. Let's talk to both sides of the family. That was the first time, throughout that almost 6 months that I was interacting with her, she actually said, can I go back and study? See, it was in that mode that she saw an option, which she felt she could exercise, which is go back and study. Not that she was, quote unquote, great student with, great marks or anything. But maybe she saw education as that thing that might just make her, at least deal with the problems that she was encountering at 16. Unfortunately, we lost her. She didn't survive. But when you sit down and you say, how do you resolve some of these, issues? Is one, you empower people to make their own decisions. You help them understand that there are many possibilities and options. And how do you do that? It is not a curriculum-based thing. Like, coming back to my school, the principal looked at me after listening to my journey and she said, can you teach my girls hope? That was a question. Okay, so a large part of the credit for the work that I do now actually goes to that question and to this principal, because it was a single question. She said, can you teach my girls hope? And she followed it up by saying, I can teach them subjects. I need somebody who can teach them hope. And as I walked out of
No, but
But
I'm curious. What did you reply to her?
I
Yes?
said, we can
No?
try. I said, I'm sure. I wasn't, I didn't have a ready-made solution there. I said, sister, I'm sure. Let me go back and come back to you. And I remember coming back, getting into my car and quickly Googling saying, what is hope? Okay. And of course, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of thought process around it. So I spent the next 3 months, Rashmi, trying to understand hope. And then I have got, I think, some theoretical understanding of it. So in order to get the best understanding, I started looking at who are the people who've done a lot of work in hope. And I recognized that, through my research, that Professor Rick Miller, from Arizona State University, and he's also the CEO of Kids at Hope in the US, has done 30 years of work in making children hopeful. And his NGO is called Kids at Hope. I remember writing a random email to him one evening saying, sir, I wish to make children hopeful. I don't know what it is from a science and a theory and doing it right standpoint, right? Can you teach me? And the response came, you don't know, I was dancing in my house when I got the response.
I can understand.
So I remember setting up a call with him late one night and we were talking. And he asked me, what is it that you want to do? I said, I want to go back, at least work in this one school to begin with, make the girls hopeful. That is the journey that I want to begin. And is it possible? So what exactly is hope? And we were on a call for about an hour or more. And then he spoke about how hope is 3 things. He said one is, hope is always about setting goals and being future focused. The second, he said, is it's about believing you have the agency and the capacity to go after those goals. The third, he says, is figuring out multiple pathways to make those goals possible. He said these 3 are distinctive behaviors and people can be trained. Hope is a toolkit that you can design and teach people. And he said, Jacintha, if you undertake this work, I'm telling you, it's a lifetime of work that you will be doing. And he spoke about the work they have done. It was a very powerful story. He spoke about this young kid who was all of, I think, 13, 14, and a single parent, family that she came from. So, and her mother used to work in the nights in the US. And she was one of those who used to go through the Hope program that Kids at Hope used to conduct in her school. I believe she would meet her mother in the evenings and then her mother would set off to work. The child would be at home and she would meet her mother next day morning as mother came back from work and then got her ready to school. One morning when she woke up, she saw her neighbor in the house. And the neighbor aunt said, your mother is seriously unwell and she's in the hospital. We need to go. And we're talking of a 13-year-old child. And she went to the hospital and her mother was in the ICU on a ventilator. And the doctor actually told her, your mother is very seriously unwell and is not going to make it. We wanted to make sure that you meet her before she goes. Okay. And they said, would you want to sort of spend time with your mother and speak to her? And I believe she kept reciting the Kids at Hope anthem. Okay. Which has very powerful words in it, including things like, I will reach my dreams, I'm a kid at hope, etc., etc. And then, of course, the mother passed away. And Professor Miller happened to meet her almost a year later when he had gone to the school. And he asked this, if I may use the word orphaned, right? Young, single child who's all of 14. What made her recite the rhyme, or the poem at the, And she said, I wanted my mother to go knowing that I'm capable of taking care of myself. And when he was saying it, honestly, both of us were in tears. I said, this is incredible. In the face of tragedy, if you have been wired to think hopefully, right? You're saying, I can go through this, right? I'm going to make the right choices, even if it's painful. I am going to let go of my mother and yet be hopeful. In fact, I want my mother to go with hope in her heart. I mean, it was so incredible to just listen to it. And I remember taking copious amounts of notes, just listening to him. And he said, Jacintha, we can do this. So just leaning on his support, I said, Professor Mila, I'm going to start this in India. And I know our context is very different. Our socio-economic contexts are different. So I'll try what I can do. So I remember walking back into the school and asking the principal, will you permit me to start working with the girls? This is an experiment. I call it the 0 year for us. Year 2019, July to, almost March of 2020. I said, sister, I'm going to try and experiment multiple things and see what works. But I will guarantee you one thing, the kids will be more confident and hopeful, through what we do. So she was very, very, helpful. She said, of course, as long as it's helpful for the kids, I'm okay. So that's how HopeWorks really started. Like just a nascent little idea, which was triggered by, I think, an extremely empathetic question.
And was this name, HopeWorks, an answer to that question?
Yes, it was. So we were trying to figure out what would be the best thing. And one of my co-founders, Novex, quickly said, just maybe HopeWorks Foundation. I said, why not? We can, use that. And we were trying to find website which said HopeWorks Foundation and we couldn't find it. So finally we said, so what does hope really make you do? It gives you a sense of direction. It gives you a sense of optimism. It makes you feel that you can do things in life. So we immediately coined Hope, Skip, Jump. Just a little takeoff on hop, skip, jump. And we said hopeskipjump.org. So that became our website name because we really couldn't find the domain HopeWorks. So that's how we started, very small. Like I told you, I have this wealth of relationships with people. So I just started a small WhatsApp group. I told people, I'm going to start this from tomorrow. Are you guys interested in coming with me? Let's try what we can do. And that's how it started. And then
I have a question here.
Sure.
So are hope and resilience the same, or do they have a slight degree of difference?
Wonderful question. See, hope makes you resilient. I always see hope as this, now that I have done at least 2.5 years of one very deep study and very intense kind of, work itself, I can speak with confidence and say, hope is not this mushy, sentimental, everything will turn out okay, optimism in life alone. Hope is a hardwired behavior. When you're dealt with the worst set of cards, you say, there is a way possible in this. It is not just saying, oh, this too shall pass. Of course, it shall pass because you're going to do something about it. It's not just a faith that things will happen. You're moving with faith to convert that into action. And that's how hope works. So resilience, to give you a concrete example, we tell our girls on the day of the results that they get 10th and 12th standard. Imagine that whole, make or break year as we call it. This year, you should come and join us as we conduct what we call as the Habba. Okay, on the day they get their results, you celebrate whatever is the result. Whether it is pass, whether it is high first class, whether it is a low second class, or if it's a fail, it doesn't matter because it's a Habba. We call it a Hope Habba, and we plan to do it this year when the results come. Why? Because we want to tell people, irrespective of your results, you have options in front of you. The idea is to see forward. The idea is to think future. The idea is not to get stuck where I am today. So if you look at it tomorrow in the school, just for the 10th standard kids, we are running a small street play sponsored by a donor, run by fabulous set of artists who are coming and saying, your results are not at the end of the world. That's it. Irrespective of this, you have a future ahead of you. And to me, that is hope. And that brings great deal of resilience, right? If something goes wrong, in fact, I have a bunch of things in my phone which my kids write in. One of them is, a very ambitious kid. Last week, after she attended our program, she took my book, Words Matter, And she says, I want to prepare a presentation about this, because right now they are learning how to create presentations. We said, you choose the topic, and then she says, ma'am, I'm going to choose a few words from this and you make a presentation. I said, you're welcome to. I said, pick the words. There are 40 words in it, Rashmi. And she chooses the word ambition, gender, past. And I was very impressed. So I called her up and I asked, why these words? She said, ma'am, it means my past doesn't matter. I can move on. Of course, we've gone through extreme poverty, loss of my father. Even now we are very poor, but it doesn't matter. That's my past. And I'm comfortable with it. I said, okay, so what is ambition? She says, I really now want to do many things, and I believe I can do it. I said, okay. So I said, what does gender have to do with this? Because we haven't touched upon these things in a full-blown manner. We touch upon it sort of, and we ourselves are only 2.5 years old. And she says, ma'am, I want to make sure that just because I'm a girl, right, I don't stop myself or nobody else stops me from doing what I have to do. And I'm saying, that night when I went to bed, I said, job done for the day, You have one 18-year-old who's saying, my gender, my past, none of these things will become barriers to my ambitions, whatever. And if that is not hope, then what is? And if that is not resilience, then what is, right? We run a small hope center in Kurumangala. And right now there's a bus strike, right? One of the kids who's studying a post-graduation with a scholarship comes to our Hope Center every day to attend online classes because she doesn't have a laptop. We have about 5, which the children can use. Day before yesterday, she called me and she asked, there are 2 options, ma'am. So imagine she's not coming to you with a problem. She's coming to you with options. She says, one, I can come to Hope Center, but I don't have money for auto. And now the auto fares are now more because there are no buses, right? So I have to spend 100 rupees, 200 rupees every day for auto. So that's one option. And she's got her internals going on this. Option 2 is, can you spare me the laptop? I will make sure I bring it back safely to you. So she's giving you the choice, saying, listen, you want to help me. You've said you'll help me, right? Here are 2 options I'm giving you. So it's very clear in my head. Either I give her 200 rupees every day, right? Or I give her a laptop which she can take home and work on. She's not coming here standing in front of me and saying, ma'am, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do, which is the normal reaction of somebody who's not gifted with confidence and resilience. Imagine internals. You're a child who doesn't have a laptop. She can't do her exams on her phone. She has a hope center which is far away from her house. Yet she's not coming and telling you her problem. She's telling you, I have 2 options. Now you can think of a third option and suggest it to her, or you figure out. And these are the only 2 options, right? Is there anything else? The option 4 is to tell, I won't write exam. But she's telling you that I'm willing to take this and do this. So then I told her, let's work out what works the best. You can take the laptop and then work it out. So one day you come by auto, and then next day, say you work from home, take the laptop. That evening, just before going with the laptop, she says, I was actually quite scared, ma'am. But I also thought, what is the point? I have to figure out how to solve this problem. I didn't, you realize suddenly you didn't create this, right? You didn't expect a BMTC strike. You didn't expect internals to happen in the same week. You didn't expect any of these. All of these are cards that have been given to you to play that week. And she's still making her choices and saying, you know what, these are the options in front of me. She could have very well turned out a victim and said, ma'am, why these problems keep happening to me? Why only this week they had to keep internals and the BMTC strike and everything had to go wrong? She wasn't even in that space, Rashmi, because she's now saying, think ahead. Yes, we have a problem. Think ahead. And I think, to me, that is hope, because it's so easy to give up in the face of problems and circumstances which you have not created, but lands on your plate every day, and yet figure out options. I think, to me, that is hope. And
Jacintha, you said you're 2 years old with HopeWorks.
Yes.
And you said you went to school to teach the girls hope. So where did the postgraduate student come, and how's this foundation helping in getting all of the scholarships?
Lovely, lovely. So we have three flagship programs that we run. One is called I Grow, which stands for Girls Rising Over the World. In fact, it was our first flagship program which we started in this school from 8th standard to 12th standard. In 8th standard, we teach them self-appreciation, which is to know that your skin doesn't matter, your skin color doesn't matter, your height doesn't matter, your weight doesn't matter, because they are in that age where hormones are all over, they are growing, and they clearly don't like themselves, right? For some reason, it's Nayantara who looks the most beautiful, etc., etc. In 9th standard, we teach them what we typically try and teach women: financial self-reliance, emotional self-reliance, physical self-reliance, all of those things which I believe all of us should have been taught from the very beginning. In 10th standard, we teach them resilience.
Okay.
We teach them how every situation has options. So my famous line with our 10th standard and 12th standard girls is, if you pass, you have 60 career options. If you don't pass, you have a multitude. You can figure out whatever you want to do. This can be quantified. That is really almost, unimaginable. It's up to you to figure out what you want to do. So in 11th standard, we teach them workplace skills. We teach them why competition and collaboration are the same sides of the coin, right? Teamwork and individual excellence are two sides of these are concepts that children need to understand even before they come to the workplace. In 12th standard, we give them career options and choices. What would you like to do? These are kids who don't believe they have the option to do anything, first and foremost. And like any 17, 18-year-old, it is determined by what my friend thinks. Or, the famous question they'll ask is, ma'am, does this have scope? Okay, so I always ask, what is scope? Okay. And then they'll say, ma'am, I actually want to be a chartered accountant, and the hesitation saying, I don't think I can get there because I don't think I can afford to study something like that. And then you say, okay, you want to be a chartered accountant? What do you think you need to do to become a chartered accountant? So we bring chartered accountants to talk to them. We had 3 chartered accountants come and talk to the 12th standard girls last year. One from Moody's, one, if I'm right, from EY, and one who runs his own chartered accountancy firm, because a large number of kids in 12th standard in this school have commerce as their option. Out of that whole bunch, 2 of them have chosen to pursue chartered accountants. And to me, that's a big one. And when I asked them, now are you confident of becoming a chartered accountant? They were like, okay. So earlier you choose courses, right? And then hope that a career emerges from that. Now we train them to say, think of the career, then decide the course. Now she says, I'm going to do BCom and I'm parallelly going to apply for Intermam. So we took them to, the Institute of Chartered Accountancy, and they saw the building. So, what you're doing is giving a structure to their hopes and dreams. And you're saying, hey, this is the way you go through this. Eventually, whether they become chartered accountants or they choose to become a lecturer, I'm happy with whatever choice they make. But it's an empowered decision that they are making. True. So at 12th standard, we give scholarships, Rashmi, and that's our second program. And that's called the Hope Citizen Program, where we give them scholarships to pursue a course which they want to in a college that they want to. We don't tell them go to a government college or ye karo. We tell them you make the choice. We give you about 50% of the fees, and sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending upon their family backgrounds. So who are the kids who get our scholarships? It's called the Dreamers Fund. And the children who get it are people who show us some aspiration, who tell us this is where I'd like to go, who have at least got 60%. We don't insist on academic excellence or 90% or any of those things. Third, that their annual family income is not more than 1.6 or 1.7 lakhs. Annual family income, with the average size of family being at least 4 people. Okay. Some of the children definitely come from either single parent backgrounds or they don't have parents at all. Okay. These are the filters that we apply, and we say we give you scholarship. And then once they get their own, admissions in college, etc., we pay the fees for them for the year. And we run the Hope Citizen program, which is every Sunday. We have a small office in Kurumangala called Hope Center, where our girls come. This year, we were able to send 8 girls to colleges. One is doing BCA, a couple of them are doing BCom, one is doing BA, so, different courses. We bring them and we put them through 3 years of training program, because when they go into a workplace, they should not feel at any point in time, I'm in some way a compromised candidate, or I'm not good enough compared to the others. I keep telling them, even if an IIT passed person is sitting next to you, you should know that you are equally competent. That's what you have to go out from here. In that process, of course, a lot of other NGOs, etc., have heard about the work we do. So they reached out and they said, there is one child here who's passed her undergraduate course, BSc in microbiology or biotechnology, with 90% and can't afford PG because, there's just no money. So I told, why don't you come and meet us? So she came and she said, ma'am, I want to study. Come what may, I want to study. Can you help me? So I said, we don't typically work with, postgraduate students. We'll make an exception for you. And she said, yeah, I'm okay with that. And so, as trustees and as a core committee, we said, in her case, we'll make an exception and look at how we can support her education. So that's how, she got an admission in, I think, Oxford College, and we support her with fees. In fact, she's the only child we've given full fees. We usually give about 50 to 60%. For her, we've given the whole amount because that's a family that struggles even for food. And they are supported by another NGO with groceries every month. So very interestingly, one Sunday morning when she came to our course, our standard question is, did you eat? Did you eat? Like we do even at office, I think, hey, what breakfast did you have, etc. And she says, ma'am, today no oil. Rashmi, sometimes you sit and think, what world do we live in? I don't think we've ever seen a situation where you didn't have breakfast because there was no oil to cook, right? But that's the family from which this child comes. And, she speaks with great comfort about the fact that her father is an alcoholic and there's nothing that they can do about it. You just have to go through the motions, right? She's very determined. She says, I want to do PhD, ma'am, at some time. I said, sure. So she continues. And that's how one postgraduate student landed in our, vision. But most of them are 12th pass kids going into college. So that's our second program, the Hope Citizen program, associated with the Dreamers Fund Scholarship. The third program we run is called HOSA. Of course, being from Karnataka, you will know what it means. It came as a request to us from a home that is run for children who come from extreme vulnerabilities, abuse, abandonment, exposure to criminality, name it, and these kids are recovered from those environments. And you have an age group that goes from 7 to almost 18. And this NGO again asked us, can you come and spend time with our children and help them to get to look at the outer world, the world that is better. So I remember going and spending some time with the kids, and I realized the first thing they all want to know is that there are nice adults out there in the world. There are good adults whom they can trust, right? So first 3-4 months, all we've done is go there every Sunday afternoon. We don't conduct classes per se. We conduct different types of interactions. Someday it's just painting, someday it is, also get them to express what's going on inside their minds and hearts. And this program is absolutely heartwarming, I tell you. Every Sunday afternoon, I'm waiting to get out of my house, go to this home, and you will have the 7-year-olds run to you from different corners of that house, and they will climb all over you, Rashmi. They in fact tell me, you just sit down, okay, and you have to sit on a chair or sit somewhere, and then the little ones will just climb all over you. Then they will check your hair, then they'll bring little bindis they have and they'll keep it for you. You're just replacing an adult in their life whom they can trust and interact with. 2 months into this program, and we have a bunch of volunteers who come every Sunday. Now, can you believe what this world is really about. It's about them, you know. Then the children open up about their vulnerabilities, right? Like one of them will come and say, ma'am, I get very angry. I feel like beating up everybody. Now, she's not going to open up and talk that to anybody unless she feels she can trust you with her vulnerability. Because the real world will say, how can you get so angry? How can you do this, right? We are saying you get angry. Oh my God, why do you get angry? What causes the anger? And then she slowly starts talking. And then you say, okay, do we put her into a counseling, right? Do we do something else? Because the kids are also, having so much physical energy, and with current COVID, lockdown, etc., it is frankly not exciting for the children, right? So we get a female football coach who works with them on weekends so that they just get the energy out, this is putting it out there. So we had this one little activity on Feb 14 because it was Valentine's Day, and some of them are teens, pre-teens, all of that. So we said, okay, today you're going to give the card to the person you love the most, okay? And it can be you also, you decide. You won't believe the number of kids who wrote the cards to themselves, and they held it and they said, ma'am, I really love myself. And that's what you want, that you are not defined or constrained by your circumstances or your past experiences. You are still worthy, beautiful, lovable, and you have a future. To me, Hosa is
many. It's called Hosa because Hosa is new. So yeah, how did new come there? You're giving them a new life. They're seeing a new way of looking at life.
Yes. To me, it had two meanings. One was harnessing our special abilities, okay, because we want these children to know that each one of them has some tremendous amount of gifts inside each one of them. And second is that this is new, you can let go and carry some of those experiences into the future, but don't live there, move. So we constantly give them, Professor Miller talks about time travel, he has these amazing terminologies. He'll say, Jacintha, make them time travel, which means make them go into the future. So we constantly ask them, tomorrow, what are you going to be doing? And they'll say, ma'am, I haven't thought. So I'll say, sit down now, think, what do you want to do tomorrow? And then you're triggering a thought saying, I can think about tomorrow, right? Then you're saying, okay, summer vacation, what are you going to be doing, right? Or, 9th standard, when you go, what are you going to be doing? So constantly, you don't call it goal setting, but what you are doing is move the child to think of a future where she can set some goals and go after it. So one child said, I just want to improve my handwriting. We said, great, good. And what does an 8th standard child think of? She's not going to think of changing the world. She says, my handwriting, ma'am, not very good. I said, so try and work on that, right? And then you say, how do you then break that goal into smaller activities that you do every day? It could be practicing a little, finding out from people, how do I best write, what seems to appeal to somebody who's looking at your handwriting and saying good or not. That is what our mentors do. And we have mentors, believe me, from campuses of colleges to corporate campuses.
Okay.
Come and spend time with children who teach them little things, like one of the kids actually came to me, Rashmi, and said, can you teach me something? I said, okay, what is it? She said, how can I stop myself from using bad words? I said, if you know they are bad, why do you use them? And she said, but that's all I heard. That's all I hear in my house. That's all I hear in my neighborhood. It's only when I came to this school and started using that word, I suddenly realized that it's not a good word. And now I don't have too many friends. And look at her anxieties, right? But she says, ma'am, I can't stop myself. It comes naturally. What do I do? So we, of course, discussed a bunch of things. And honestly, I didn't have any solution of saying, ye karo yaar. But we said, try different things. Sometimes just walk away from there, try, you have these all things, no? When you're angry, count to 5, all kinds of things. And after a couple of months, she suddenly came to me and she says, ma'am, I'm better now. I said, wow, what are you doing? She says, I stopped using bad words. I said, really? Like how? She said, I just mutter under my breath. When you tell the child you are capable of solving your own problems, look at multiple options. She figures out she can find her own way to solve this problem. I can't stop myself. This is what I'm socialized into, right? There's nothing moralistic or preachy or any of those things. Just figure out a way to solve this. And she said, I just mutter under my breath. And nobody hears it also, so it's okay. So I'm like, okay. And she's an amazing child. When I meet her in the school, it's very fascinating, the conversations that we have.
Yeah.
It's
Just
very,
this little conversation is enough a glimpse to tell us how fascinating the
yeah, it is.
conversation.
It's a very different world. But when children begin to trust you and hand over, a little part of their life to share with you, you feel so empowered. You're saying, okay, what can I, try and help this child with? And they're very, very, conscious of asking you. They're very reasonable in, they'll say, ma'am, it's getting late for you. No, today you have to go. It's okay, no problem. We'll talk next week when you come. So I realized that you're actually just creating, a world that is better for children, and children, I think, who are ready for the world. To me, that is really hope, and that's our mission.
That's so powerful. A world that is ready for children, and children who are ready for the world. But nobody was ready in 2020, Jacintha.
Yes.
And most of these children, you said, come from the economically weaker section, which were badly hit when the pandemic struck.
Yes.
The rest did manage, though they complained, but these people didn't have even the basics. And I'm sure classes didn't happen like they were happening in 2019.
Yeah.
So 2020 was a learning for all of us. But for HopeWorks and Jacintha, what were the biggest learnings? Because you were yourself finding hope and distributing it. And suddenly you see the biggest challenge. Did you see the challenge, or hope worked?
Yes, I think hope works. Let me tell you, it pushes you into action. On the day the lockdown was announced, next day, with just my driver and his wife, we set out to see where are the migrants who are struggling. We had no idea, by the way. We had absolutely no idea. So we discovered in Koramangala, where I live itself, we have a lot of them. And when you went and spoke to them, they were shell-shocked. They had no idea what hit them, and they had no clue. So first, we in the night, we went and to a tent house and bought that big vessel to cook and shipped it to our house. And I have this massive stove, and we cooked. First day was, I think, about 50 meals, and we went and distributed. Second day was about 75 meals. By the third day, I was telling myself this cooking and taking is not going to solve the problem, because one, your quantities are very limited, right? And they are men who've come from Bengal, Bihar, and who are used to hard physical labor. Imagine giving them bisibele bath. I love bisibele bath, but when you do that kind of hard labor, a small packet of bisibele, I know will help. It's better than nothing, but it's not going to solve long-term hunger issues. So we said, what can we do? We quickly formed a consortium with 2 other NGOs, and we were helped tremendously by donors who first started giving us food. And then when we pitched with them that groceries could be a better way to do it, one, because it reduced your contact with them. You gave them groceries for, say, 15 days. And then you went and gave the next refill in some ways, right? It was very powerful. When we could get, you don't know how many tons. We actually eventually did, I think, about 1 lakh meals. We did about 14,50,000 meal support in the form of groceries.
Oh my God.
About 25,000 masks. To me, it's not so much the numbers. I'm sharing it only to know the scale of what was possible because of people's generosity with money, time, and most importantly, fearlessness. We had 60 volunteers. We went and requested that we get a place where we could store hundreds of thousands of kgs of groceries. It was not, small numbers. Earlier, we would do it from my garage, where we would get 100 kgs we could do in my house. But now we were talking quintals. We were talking, lorries coming and delivering. So I remember just putting out on WhatsApp groups, asking for people. 60 volunteers started showing up. And we ran an operation that was there for almost 25 days, packing groceries from morning till night. So we would start around 9 and we would wrap up around 9. and then shipped the groceries to various parts of Bangalore urban and some parts of Bangalore rural through a network of other NGOs. They would say, Jacintha, here there are 50 people very hungry. Can you do something? So we had to iron out everything, right, in the space of 10 days. Finances, supply, packing, procurement, packing and delivery, all of it. And none of us were in that business. We were just doing it as it came. But I think by June end, I think we were able to supply and help a very, very large part of Bengaluru. And I think to me, that was a very, very gratifying experience. So a lot of people said, how is this HopeWorks? I said, Hope took the form of groceries during COVID. Hope took the form of a mask. This was not the time to go and tell people how to be hopeful, but genuinely do something that makes them believe in a better world, right? That people are willing to come and help you, that people are willing to see that you are struggling and they are willing to do their bit. And I thought that was a very, very powerful effort from civil society and from NGOs. I thought it was an extraordinary effort. And I hope it will be captured for posterity somewhere, because I don't know when the next pandemic will come, what kind of a frightening pandemic it will be. But will we have enough people who will step out and say, I shall still take the charge to make it a better world? And I think a lot of people did it, Rashmi. It was a fabulous experience. It was so amazing in terms of what we learned, how much we learned about ourselves too, and how communities come together to help one another. I had 65-year-old men suddenly coming to the center where we were packing groceries. We were given a Kalyan Mandap to work, and we saw these 65, 70-year-old men, and we were not very sure, but they bought us grapes. This is a season of grapes. Remember March, April, May, get a nice. So he comes and says, ma'am, from our neighborhood, we've been seeing all that y'all are doing. We can't come and help you because we ourselves are not supposed to come out of the house. But what we can do is give you grapes. So they had bought, and he's explaining to me, we washed it in salt water, man. So you can just eat it like that and distribute it to all the other volunteers. Can you imagine? There was one uncle, retired. He would come every evening to the center with 3 flasks of coffee and tea and a snack. He would either buy samosas, or he would get biscuits, or he would buy kachoris, something that he could manage. He'll say, ma'am, y'all are doing so many things at such great risk. I can get you, tea. In fact, everybody thought of the lockdown. For us, it was widening of this circle. I just met, and I think a lot of my colleagues and friends met more people. The world itself sort of widened, and you had such powerful relationships that you have built because you came together to serve somebody else's need, not so much as your own, right? So there was, and it is very, very beautiful. We supported 11 orphanages throughout that period, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of what we call migrant workers. But beyond all of that, I think we supplied hope through groceries. You supplied hope through masks. You just made them believe that a better world is possible. That even today, this world, while being locked down, has enough people who are willing to sort of look beyond what's comfortable to them, right? So that was our experience during COVID. And then, of course, from November, we started going back and looking at what can we do in schools, because schools started opening up again in November, December. So, and starting off the program in the special needs home. So we've done, I think, enough and more work to believe there was no lockdown, or that it didn't affect us. We did start this February a very small project called Project Usiru, because many kids who come to school come without any breakfast, and there is no meals being supplied. So in this school, we partner with another NGO called Swabhiman Trust, and we provide breakfast for about 250 children every day. So in the month of March, about 6,000 meals were supplied to school children. And one donor came forward to give eggs at once a week. So I can smell, feel, experience hope every day, because I see generosity, I see kindness, and I genuinely see human beings who are willing to do their bit and more. Believe me, you on that.
No, Jacintha, for me, with all the stories that you're sharing, you only embody and you're living proof of Christopher Reeve's quote, where he says, once you choose hope, anything's possible.
Everything is possible. Indeed. In fact, in our hope manual, which I don't have a copy of here, we have, Christopher Reeve's quote in the end. And I always tell girls, you have choices in front of you.
Yeah.
You have a choice to say hope, not hope. Choose this, because, and you just make it their natural response and behavior. That is the idea of training, You're not just telling them saying, ye karo. It becomes your natural response mechanism, and that can be hardwired into a person by constant exposure to how hope works, We don't go and just keep giving them inspirational stories. We try multiple methodologies, training, games, support, counseling, listening. You're putting in the entire framework to work, so that their natural response in a hopeless situation is to be hopeful. I'll give you a story. Actually, one is the same child who spoke about how I didn't know how to get over my the need to speak bad words person, right? She was one day standing and talking to me. She got me biryani, by the way, as gift for helping her overcome that problem. And so we were sharing the biryani, and I said, tell me what's happening in life. She said, ma'am, my father, he can't see because he was ma'am, rowdies who live in slums. I said, okay, my father's a rowdy. I said, okay. So in one of the fights, he lost an eye and I think a leg. So now he's bedridden. I said, okay. And then very casually states, my mother is his second wife, ma'am. I said, okay. But we all live together, happy family. We are first wife, second wife. I said, okay. And then she said, but you know what, ma'am? My, my aunt, which is the first wife's, her daughter, ma'am, my elder sister, she committed suicide 2 weeks ago, ma'am. I'm like, okay. And then she said, because of love failure, ma'am, some boy ditched her, ma'am. She studied, she was working in one company also, ma'am, but look at her, she's such an idiot, ma'am. Why did she commit suicide? I said, okay. And then she says, I will never become like that, ma'am. I said, okay. And then I said, why will you not become like that? She said, we all are learning, from all of you, that we can take care of ourselves. So I will never become like her. That one conversation with her that day was much more than the biryani, right? You're saying, imagine in the face of such tragedy, the child is still saying, my natural response will be to now choose a more powerful and a more hopeful response, irrespective of what comes in my life, right? It's fascinating. Their natural response mechanism will be to choose the hopeful behavior and response. And I think that to me is very important.
Wow, what a powerful note. Jacintha, we are towards the end. So normally I ask people 3 life lessons. Do you have 3? I'm sure you would have a book, but still, can you make it concise to 3, or do you want 5? You have a choice.
I think only one life lesson, and that is, I think we're all capable of so much more. We are bigger than the person we have started believing that we are, right? Look at our capacity to do good. Look at our capacity to think that there is a tomorrow, which is going to be better than what it is today. Look at our ability to beat our own fears. Of course, all of us are fearful about COVID. We're all fearful about, but imagine our ability to overcome that fear and still do what we have to do in our own ways, right? Look at the way you have launched a podcast, right? The idea is to do what you can do today to make a difference. And I think every person is so capable of it if only we give ourselves the opportunity and the chance. But above and beyond all that, trust yourself and your capacity. I think very often you're taught not to trust yourself. I am not going to let the world judge me by the things that I can't do. I would much rather impact the world with the things I can do. And I think if we can think along those lines, I think this world is going to be so much better.
Oh my God, with you, partner, on that. Love the work that you're doing and love the fact that you're such a wonderful ambassador of hope. And those 4 alphabets mean so much in everyone's life. And how beautifully you're living it out every day and passing it on is an inspiration, Jacintha, that makes you absolutely unique and brings out that individual, beautiful person, human being that you are. Thank you so much for sharing this amazing journey you've had so far, and wishing you more and more strength, energy, hands, whatever you want, to continue spreading this powerful 4-letter word, hope, and in your journey of life itself to take you wherever you want to go, because we need more people like you, and may your tribe increase, Jacintha.
Thank you so much, Rashmi.
With that, we come to the end of this episode of You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Do let us know your feedback and your guest suggestions. Write in to rashmi.thethirdeye@gmail.com. That is rashmi.thethirde@gmail.com.